Welcome to hour number 2, bright and early here on a Friday morning to get you ready for the weekend in a new Major League Baseball season. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. This is the early line on SportsGrid. In this second hour, much like yesterday, an early preview of 2025 in MLB. Our first spring training game of this spring. Yesterday, was it in Florida? No, Arizona, right? Yeah, the Cubs are in Arizona. Yeah. The Dodgers certainly in Arizona as well. Chicago, big outright victory as the underdog, 12-4. Yesterday, we went league by league, division by division, talking about those contenders for a pennant and, of course, a World Series championship. Today, more of the individual approach, the MVP odds, and all of the honors that we can see throughout Major League Baseball this season. And some big news out of the Bronx as well, aside times for the New York Yankees. A lot to get to here, DRS, in this second hour.
Absolutely. There's a lot to get to here. And it is nice to have Major League Baseball where you're going to get the highlights back, your favorite team and the favorite pitchers coming out here. Bryce Harper yesterday showing off that he got a Philly Fanatic tattoo here, so further ingratiating himself to the city of brotherly love. So it's a good time here for the turnaround because it's still cold in the Northeast. You just like to see the highlights of, it might be warmer at some parts of the country here. And baseball is a sign that summer is getting closer and closer. And we love that. We do.
Food influencer Bryce Harper, put the raw milk away, buddy. It's okay
true.
To have a couple of antibiotics
stacking up in my house.
CRS is all about it. Big news out of the Bronx as we shared, not injuries or anything of the sort. This is 10 minutes ago. Statement from Yankees managing general partner Hal Steinbrenner. Alteration of the Yankees' longstanding facial hair policy. In recent weeks, I have spoken to a large number of former and current Yankees spanning several eras to elicit their perspectives on our long-standing facial hair and grooming policy, and I appreciate their earnest and varied feedback. These most recent conversations are an extension of an ongoing internal dialogue that dates back several years. Ultimately, the final decision rests with me, and after great consideration, we will be amending our expectations to allow our players and uniform personnel to have well-groomed beards moving forward. It is the appropriate time to move beyond the familiar comfort of our former policy. Of course, DRS, long-standing policy in New York. You could not have facial hair if you wore the pinstripes in the Bronx. Only a very well-kept and tidy mustache. That was it. The beards are back in the Bronx. What does it mean for the Yankees?
Yeah, come on. Where's tradition at? Aren't the Yankees supposed to be one of the most traditional franchises around? And if the dad's going to institute something like that, you're going to go against your dad's wishes. It's a wonder why the dad won all the time and the sons barely can win at all at this point. Yet by having a team in New York City with all the coffers and that payroll that they can have. So, okay, if we're not about tradition anymore, how about doing away with one of the dumbest traditions of all time, which is the Yankees? Put the name on the back of your jersey at home. Do away with that tradition too. Hey, look, beards, mustaches, goatees, long hair, and put the name on the back of the jersey at home. How about that, New York? Is that good for tradition for you as well?
Well-kept beards. We're not about to be hippies out here. We got to keep things fine.
Trust me.
Need a
Johnny Damon will come back out of retirement look like a caveman.
You think so? You think he was the final push to Hal Steinbrenner? He's like, listen, Hal. I lost all my mojo when I left Boston to join you in the Bronx, and I had to cut my hair.
Yeah, they got to be eyeing up somebody over the next off season. It's like, this guy's not going to come here because he likes his hair a little bit longer or wears a beard. So this has to have an ulterior motive that they're already setting up and trying to blame it on. But by the way, if you are a smart owner, right, and you're like, hey, look, some of the best players in this league have big, thick, bushy beards at this point, like James Harden. Like, hey, look, I can't pay the guy $600 million because he won't shave his beard. Like, that's usually a great business model because it keeps you from signing players and you can use that as a crutch and excuse. There's no more excuses now. Unkempt guys to the Yankees for $800 million. Let's go.
You saying thick, big, bushy beards really just got me. I don't know why, but the combination of all of those words. Does Aaron Judge come out with a beard this year? I'll tell you one thing. Gerrit Cole looks so much better with a beard, dating back to his Astros days where he won a World Series than he ever has in New York. Devin Williams just came over to the Yanks, one of the best back-end bullpen closers in baseball. Had to shave his beard. Let it grow, Devin. Let it grow. Max Fried sporting a mustache. What is Nestor Cortez look to do. How about our guy, Luis? Don't call him you-know-what. Heel. We'll see. We shall see. DRS, do you remember a conversation we had last summer where Aaron Judge was an odds-on favorite, well on his way to winning his second MVP award in the last 3 years? And you told me, straight-faced and all, very earnest, that Aaron Judge entering the 2025 MLB season would not be booked as the MVP favorite entering the year. Let's go to the MVP odds, because there is Aaron Judge atop the odds board as the AL MVP favorite, looking to win his third in the last 4 seasons.
And if you look at the NL odds, Juan Soto's in second place at a plus 550 to maybe the biggest favorite of all time in Shohei Ohtani. So if I'm using my metrics, Soto would be ahead of Judge this year, probably like a plus 275 price, just looking at those two numbers. So there you go. Man, extrapolate to the max at this point. But we do think Aaron Judge is going to have a good season, but it is a very wide open race. Like, I don't think anybody's really a front runner per se, where it's like, hey, if Ohtani hits 50 bombs and pitches 3 innings this year, like, nobody can actually get that award. So it's nice and refreshing to talk about the American League, where I think a lot of people can have really good seasons. And just based upon the first 6 people I'm looking at, up to Vladdy Guerrero, 15-1 or less, it's feasible. Like, nobody's going to look at Bobby Witt and say he can't win the MVP. Then he plays in a smaller market on a team that might not be able to do damage, but the guy's an absolutely hitting machine and hits for average. Gunnar Henderson, fences moving back in down there at Camden Yards. You know, maybe he hits more home runs at 7-1 price. Corey Seager, you know, he's always got that detail down there in Texas. So I'm excited to see some of these players, but in agreement, like you're saying, well, who should it be? Definitely it's going to be Aaron Judge, because if you're in that small ballpark in the summer, and also when you play in a division with a lot of small ballparks, he's a home run hitter, you get the benefit of the doubt. You pop 50 home runs, you're going to be in that top 3, no doubt about it, come September, regardless of what anybody else does.
And I'll just say, DRS, I actually did not expect the odds to be this tight. I would have thought Aaron Judge probably had $1 at least on everybody.
Yeah.
There's 20 cents in front of Bobby Witt Jr. And the reason Aaron Judge has won MVP awards, of course, the history, the most home runs ever in the American League, 62 in 2022, on pace for a good majority of last season to eclipse that historic mark as well. Still led the bigs with 58 long balls and 144 RBIs. If Aaron Judge even falls slightly short of those numbers, let's say he has 51 home runs and 125 RBIs, that's going to hurt his case for AL MVP, because he's almost competing against his former self, his current self, in the rest of the field. And the voters, DRS, who we know are very opinionated in Major League Baseball. We can't give it to the same guy, even if he has a beard, for a third time in 4 years. I think there's a ton of value across the board. Bobby Witt Jr., maybe not a ton of value. Still think he is going to be in the top 5 at bare minimum. And a large drop-off to Gunnar Henderson, Corey Seager, Yordan Alvarez, Vladdy Jr. playing in a contract and career year. A lot to like in the American League MVP odds, Donnie, to your point about it feeling a little bit up in the air, where you can put a couple of bets in, take a couple of stabs at it, and probably find yourself a good number.
Exactly. And maybe somebody doesn't run away with it early and gets that huge price point, because also understand this, like Aaron Judge, no stranger to going on the IL at that point either. So when you're getting injured and you expect to carry the load, and maybe some things will be different where, as we like to say, you know, Juan Soto not in there to protect him, where he's going to get to see more fastballs. Somebody else has to step up. And when you are an MVP, well, you better be locked in that next year, because they're going to pitch around you every single chance they get. And also, the fans get upset. Like if Aaron Judge comes out and hits 35 home runs, man, what a terrible season. Hey, man, when you're the king of the hill the year before, you better produce the next year, particularly in New York City, where the expectations really high for the Yankees again.
Similar conversations around Nikola Jokic. All right, the guy averages a triple-double. Well, you better have a triple-double every night. Same thing for Aaron Judge. The rest of the honors around the American League next. So we looked at the MVP odds around the American League. Who might have a beard in the Bronx this year? Now, the rest of the American League award odds throughout the AL in 2025. The reigning Cy Young winner is back in Detroit. Tarek Skubal, plus 350. Last repeat Cy Young winner in either league, that was Jacob deGrom for the New York Mets in 2018 and 2019. Hasn't happened in the American League since 1999-2000 in Pedro Martinez. Some great stat finds from our stat man and producer extraordinaire, Joe Frizo. Rookie of the Year, Jason Dominguez 4 home runs in 8 games when he first came up in 2023, then tore his UCL, played only 18 games in 2024. Dominguez with the Yankees, right? I'm not crazy in saying that. 3-1 number for Dominguez there. Manager of the year, Dan Wilson at a 4-1 number. First season as the Mariners manager. Seattle expected to be in that playoff mix around the American League and AL West. Team win total at 84.5. Emmanuel Clase plus 250 to be the reliever of the year. Like Aaron Judge, he has won this award twice in the last 3 seasons, in 2022 and 2024. And if Mike Trout, with the move to right field, can stay healthy, comeback player of the year at plus 350 in the AL makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, the Trout one does make a lot of sense. Like, this guy just has to come back and hit 280 and hit, 25 home runs. He's probably going to be the comeback player of the year at a plus 350 price, which looks pretty solid. But I want to focus here on the AL Cy Young award-winning market because Tarik Skubal is a damn good pitcher, rightfully so, plus 350. Where have all the good pitchers gone in the American League, though, Ben? Like, second place is Gerrit Cole. Cole Reagans, a 36-year-old broken down Jacob deGrom is 11-1 in 4th place in the odds market. Like, I'm surprised I see Gerrit Cole at 12-1, knowing that he can win it. Max Fried 20-1, but my goodness, like, you usually expected to see like top names, at least for the first 10 in the odds market. And number 2, we're getting Gerrit Cole. And what did everybody get stolen from the Dodgers, the Phillies for the National League, where that's the only market that you can actually have legitimate pitchers in? That is an absolutely wide open market. Now, granted, would you bet Skubal again? Of course, fantastic left-handed pitcher, but we know
for sure
it's a tough award to pick because baseball players, particularly high-end pitchers, tend to miss time and break down. And how many years can you go 200-plus innings and be filthy and dominant? Now, Tarik Skubal probably can win it, but my good, you look down that board again, there are some pitching names out there with some huge numbers that you might want to back, but I just don't see that star power anymore in the American League pitchers.
I still think there is some. Shane McClanahan was well on pace to win it 2 years ago before injuries sidelined him at 30-1. Gerrit Cole is still there at a 12-1 number. Logan Gilbert was filthy last year, but never got the run support he needed in Seattle. Gerrit Cole was putting up Cy Young numbers, but played for the White Sox. Now, as a member of the Red Sox, does he have some juice? Framber Valdez was great in Houston. I hear your point, right? There's not that bona fide ace really outside of Gerrit Cole. I do think there are some really good pitchers here, though, and some value to be had, especially with the idea that Skubal should be the favorite, but he's not necessarily going to win this award, as we have not seen many reigning Cy Young winners win it for a second consecutive year. It is interesting to me, DRS, to see Gerrit Cole tied for the 5th best price at 12-1. Almost from the odds perspective, he always has a short number that sometimes is justified and other times is not. He also has a fellow guy at the top of that starting staff now in New York. Of course, the Yankees did not re-sign Juan Soto, but made some big moves elsewhere, including in their pitching staff. We talked about Devin Williams, maybe the best reliever or one of the best relievers in all of MLB. Max Fried now comes over from Atlanta as well. 20-1 number for the lefty now wearing pinstripes.
Yeah, you're right. And also, how about Emmanuel Clase? We're talking about being the best closer in the business, 200-1 to win that Cy Young, which maybe that's one of those years you could sort of hang on and say, let me take a flyer at a deep number with a dominant pitcher, because maybe you don't get that unbelievable front end to the rotation guy where it's like, hey, this guy's running away with the Cy Young at a 2.10 or let's just say a 1.89 ERA at this point. So options down the board, but again, just jarring to see where we just don't have those true aces at the top of the lineup. And again, that feeds into it where maybe you can place down a bet on a Carlos Rodon returning back to form at a 45-1 on a very good Yankees team, just posting statistics. So chances and opportunities to jump in at good prices, you might get that this year at the FanDuel Sportsbook and MLB.
I do think Shane McClanahan, if healthy, has some value at a 30-1 number. And just should be noted, DRS, 30-1 as well for a fellow American League East hurler. That would be Grayson Rodriguez, right? The O's have the second best price to win the American League pennant, but they don't exactly have that bona fide ace or a great starting staff, 1 through 5. Grayson Rodriguez, the young star, is basically their ace now in Baltimore as Corbin Burns is playing in Arizona. Any other looks, DRS, throughout the rest of those honors? Rookie, manager, reliever, comeback, Mike Trout. I just hope he can stay healthy. It would be fun to see Mike Trout more often than not.
Yeah, the Trout comeback one's a good one. Clase, obviously a dominant reliever. Dan Wilson, it's funny that we were bringing this up, and without really going through the Major League Baseball season, I had no idea he was the manager of the Seattle Mariners, which shows you that type of an award and that type of star power at managers that you have. But again, rookie Jason Dominguez, that's always going to be up in the air, and I always get a kick out of, hey, he's a rookie. Hey, he played Major League Baseball a few years ago as well. It's like, it doesn't make sense. It's just the way Major League Baseball does it with the time that they're actually up in the bigs here. So not really any other good looks at this point, but maybe there's more looks in the National League with more superstars at the top of their respective, areas per se.
Much like rookie head coaches or first-time head coaches in other sports, especially in the NFL, you still need to have that success. If Seattle is not a playoff team, Dan Wilson more than likely not going to win that award. Alex Cora has the second best price at plus 450. Last year, the winner of the American League Manager of the Year was Stephen Vogt in Cleveland because the Guardians won 92 games and won the American League Central. So all these things to keep in mind. Also, just to look at the reliever of the year, Emmanuel Clase. Again, voter fatigue perhaps, has won the award twice in the last 3 MLB seasons. The guy that is directly behind him, only a buck back, Mason Miller, for not Oakland, not Sacramento, the Athletics. Josh Hader at a 5-1 number. His former teammate in Milwaukee, Devin Williams, now in New York, a 5-1 price as well. We'll flip our attention over to the National League on the other side. Can anybody take the award from Shohei Ohtani if he is also on the bump this year in Los Angeles? We'll talk about the NL MVP odds entering 2025 up next. The National League MVP odds entering 2025. For most of last year, did Shohei Ohtani win it last year? He did, right? Never mind. I even take that back. Shohei Ohtani won NL MVP a season ago and wasn't even a starting pitcher for the LA Dodgers. Shohei Ohtani, who has won multiple MVP awards, 3-time MVP winner, including a back-to-back in 2023 in the AL, in 2024 in the NL, is booked as your National League MVP favorite at plus 155. DRS outside. Oh.
What do you got? What happened? Hey, all right. So, hey, look, I'm like in this Ben, just quit the show at this point. No big deal. MVP odds. Maybe he's upset about Shohei Ohtani's plus 155 price. But let's get to the crux of the argument here. Plus 155, right? Plus 155 for Shohei Ohtani. All you're doing right now is betting in that market that Shohei Ohtani is going to stay active for the season. That's it. That's all the bet is. If Shohei Ohtani plays and he pitches somewhat average to what we know he can do and does his average at the plate, he is going to win the MVP because nobody else can do what he can do, Ben. Period.
DRS, you took the words right out of my mouth, even as I was frozen, probably looking something like that for just a second. My question was going to be, outside of an injury, if Shohei Ohtani even starts 10 games on the mound this year, can anything keep him from winning the award termed most valuable player? More than likely not. It feels like a cheat code because it is a cheat code in Major League Baseball.
It is a cheat code, and rightfully so, because MVP is most valuable player, a guy that can pitch and hit. And it's not like the guys are saying, like, hey, you know what? They're going to give me the 6th inning long relief when we're down 8 runs. I'm that type of pitcher. No, you are arguably one of the best pitchers in the sport. And then we go, well, what can he do at the plate? Oh, no, he's the best hitter in the sport. And you say, well, okay, so he pitches at an elite level and he hits at an elite level. Like, honestly, like Shohei Ohtani next year, let's just say 275 at the plate, 30 home runs, 88 RBI, and on the mound, 10-7 with an ERA of 3.5. He's the MVP. Like, that's not a sensational pitching year. It's not a sensational hitting year, but it's the same guy doing that here. So that's what, when I look at that price, as I was explaining, the plus 155, you're just betting that Ohtani is healthy for the season and doesn't miss 60 games.
Yeah, which is really what it comes down to, DRS. Will there be a time when voters around the big say to themselves, listen, we have set your standard for you. Here is how good you have to be on the mound and at the dish. It can't just be the fact that you are doing both pretty well, but he's been great in both. I don't know. That's where it really gets difficult to argue that that kind of person who is going out there and starting and winning games and striking out people and also hitting a bunch of home runs and batting in a ton of players for baseball's best team, is not going to be considered the most valuable player in the National League. Of course, there is a thought that if Shohei Ohtani is injured or does not live up to even our otherworldly expectations, could Juan Soto win the first MVP award of his career? Plus 550 price DRS with a ton of pressure and expectation now up in Queens.
Yeah, he could. Of course he could, because he's that good of a player. And maybe some of the statistics won't wow you right off the bat, because he goes from last year in one of the better hitting divisions with ballparks to maybe a little bit tougher here, because you take a look at Yankee Stadium compared to Citi Field, it's night and day for the batter there. And that's going to take some of those power numbers away from Juan Soto. But he is going to get on the base, because why? He walks more than anybody to set the table. And also, if you're an opposing pitcher, you don't want to really throw him too much. If he takes the walk, you live to fight another day with the guy behind him, or certainly the guy in front of him trying to challenge him extra. So there's a chance, but I'm not that excited to be like, you know what, Juan Soto's my guy for some of the reasons that I said. But when you start to move down the list, like, Mookie Betts, some of the shine's going to get taken away because Ohtani's on the same team. But guys like Ellie De La Cruz at 30-1. Like, you want to talk about a breakout season. The guy can steal 100 bases and hit with power. One of those breakout type seasons where it's like we saw the glimpse of it last year. Now, if he can just get a little bit more, I don't want to say like confident at the plate and not swinging outside the zone so much, and just be a more average-based hitter to get on base and sort of steal those bases. Yeah, that's one of those guys you might look at 30-1 to be a real fun player this year.
So, DRS, that was going to be my next question to you. Understanding what we have broken down for Shohei Ohtani, knowing all of the notoriety and attention that will be on Juan Soto if Ohtani were to stumble in this odds list at all, is it worth it to bet on any other guy? We'll continue that value conversation around the National League MVP odds, and also talk a very, very, very short favorite for the NL Cy Young Award as well. That would be a certain bucko known as Paul Skenes. Plenty more on the early line up next. One final look at the National League MVP odds entering the 2025 Major League Baseball season. As Donnie and I have tried to lay out, if Shohei Ohtani pitches and hits this year, it is going to be very, very difficult outside of injury for Shohei Ohtani not to win this award. An award that in the American League he's won twice. In his first year in the NL in LA last year, won as well. The 2023 National League MVP winner, Ronald Acuna Jr., a 33-1 price, returning from injury this season. We have talked about the expectation and the burden of all of that on Juan Soto. If he excels and the Mets are fantastic, he is certainly going to be in the MVP conversation. But outside of those top two guys, Donnie, and maybe even Fernando Tatis Jr., but we can lump him in to this bigger picture conversation. Knowing what Shohei Ohtani is, knowing what we expect, and knowing he is more than likely going to match those expectations, is it then worth it to wager on anybody else? Is it worth it to wager on Ohtani's price at a plus 155 number right here, right now? Basically, how do you bet the NL MVP odds, if at all?
Yeah, it's hard to do because, again, you're taking the premonition of, hey, I would like to bet Ohtani plus 155. Well, that money is tied up again 8-9 months at a plus 155 price. So do you want to use that, or use your money wisely and say I can double and triple that, quadruple that $100, 1 unit, 2 units, whatever I put down on it? But if you do feel it's like, you know what, I have enough money in my bank account, bankroll, let me fire that away, that's a no-brainer, then go ahead and take it. But way too many things can happen. Injuries can take place for that price point. It's just not worth it for me. So you start to slide that needle down a little bit in Juan Soto, Fernando Tatis, but also Tucker up there with the Cubs is really interesting. That's a hitter's ballpark. I think they could probably win that division, so we'll get the bump. But then right behind him, you do see Bryce Harper healthy entering into this season this year with a powerful lineup around them that maybe you're going to stack that deck a little bit more by moving Schwarber out of the leadoff spot back to the 3-hole, more chances for opportunities with RBI, and being healthy on a season in a very hittable ballpark for the Phillies. So there are a lot of options, but as I told you before, the Ellie De La Cruz one really sticks out a lot because that's the guy that can put up statistics that are like, wow, these are some things we haven't seen in a long time. Because we see, hey, Bryce Harper hits 40 home runs, 115, 120 RBI. You get that. But you slap a guy up there with over 100 stolen bases with power and average, yeah, that's pretty fun.
Yeah, DRS, it's such a good point, right? Because there is voter fatigue. There is the idea of matching expectation, almost competing against your own individual stats from a year prior. And that will factor into the Shohei Ohtani conversation. But it's very different when it's like, hey, you hit 45 home runs and had 125 RBIs last year. You have to do that if you're going to win the MVP again. And then when you say, hey, you pitched and you hit throughout a variety in multiple games and a majority of them this year, very different kind of scopes and conversations there. So if you are going to unseat that apple cart and knock Shohei Ohtani off his perch of MVP honors, you have to make history. Ronald Acuna Jr. did that, winning the award in 2023. First ever 40-70 season, 40 home runs, 70 stolen bases in the history of Major League Baseball. Ellie De La Cruz, certainly a candidate to kind of match some of those type of historic numbers, has the skill set to do just that. Donnie, very short favorite, of course, to win NL MVP. That's Shohei Ohtani. Very short favorite to win National League Cy Young Award. That's Paul Skenes, entering year number 2 of his Major League Baseball career. A 2-to-1 price. He is a third of everybody else around the National League, and then some. Last year's reigning National League Cy Young winner on your screen right there, Chris Sale in Atlanta, a 13-to-1 price, sandwiched in between Zach Wheeler in Philly, Blake Snell plus 850 now with the Dodgers. Is Skenes getting a tad too much respect? Is his number a little bit too short to win Cy Young?
I don't think so. Like, you saw how electric he was last year, so the expectation is coming back maybe even a little bit bigger and a little bit stronger and understand how to pitch in Major League Baseball. And that's going to be a fun season. But again, it's a power pitcher. It's a 2-to-1 price. Injuries do happen. You want to tie that money up here? But as I talked about the American League, like, hey, man, where'd all the superstars go? Yeah, they all found themselves in the National League. Skenes, Wheeler, Snell, Sale, Burns, Yamamoto, King, Cease, Gallen, Glasnow. Like, you're going Spencer Strider, who's coming back this year at a 30-to-1. If he was never injured, he's probably a minted, maybe Cy Young from even last year alone at this point. And even sort of sliding it down, like the Sonny Grays and the Hunter Greens, a lot of power pitchers here on there. But if you are saying, Donnie, plus 100 prices across the board, who do you think is going to win the Cy Young? Why wouldn't it be Paul Skenes? Like, every time out, you expect 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 strikeouts plus. And also, he is a younger pitcher. So when you look at maybe a Zach Wheeler, who is phenomenal by every stretch, maybe the best free agent signing, which includes Bryce Harper in the history of Phillies baseball, he's been nothing short of sensational, but he is getting a little bit older as well. Blake Snell, how's he going to hold up being a Dodger? Because quite frankly, is Blake Snell even going to lose a baseball game? It feels like with how talented. Hey, Snell's on the mound today with a full lineup behind him. How does he lose any games, particularly being in a pitcher's ballpark in Los Angeles, which also means that pitcher's ballpark up in San Francisco, we're going to play so many of your games there this year, both home and away. There are a lot of different. The one guy I'm not going to take, to be honest, is Chris Sale. I don't want to say it was a lightning in a bottle season where he caught some of that flashback from 5 years ago when he was more dominant pitchers in baseball. But if there's one guy I'm not betting, let's just say, in the first 10 spots here on the FanDuel Sportsbook, it's not going to be Chris Sale again, to be honest.
Yeah, hoping a reigning NL MVP or NL Cy Young winner wins it for a second consecutive year is a little bit difficult. Donnie, you said most of those bona fide aces, where do they end up? The National League. Well, you could also say the National League West. 7 of those 10 best numbers from that one division. 3 Dodgers, as you have Blake Snell, Yoshi Yamamoto, and Tyler Glasnow. 2 D-backs, Corbin Burns now in Arizona, and of course, Zach Gallen. 2 Padres, Michael King and Dylan Cease. Only one guy from the NL Central on this list. He is the favorite. That is Paul Skenes. Spencer Strider, should be noted, was a very short favorite to win NL Cy Young entering last year before he got injured. If he is fully healthy at a 30-to-1 number, does also make some sense just off that board, because there's a couple of guys at a 30-to-1 price. But here is why Paul Skenes is such a short favorite, and as Donnie alluded to, potentially justified. In his rookie campaign, 23 starts, an 11-3 record, a 1.96 ERA, 133 innings pitched, 170 strikeouts. That is 11.5 Ks per 9 innings. It is ridiculous stuff. Is the book out on him? Will batters have a better approach against Skenes this year? Maybe. Still expect him to win those matchups. And as we shared, he is the NL Cy Young favorite with a very short number at a 2-to-1 price. Also a 55-to-1 number to win National League MVP. 209.5 his strikeouts prop. Certainly on his per 9 rate, could easily mow that down if he is healthy and the Pirates are fully in it all year long. plus 350 to be that strikeout leader in Major League Baseball. 275 strikeouts, an 8-1 price. That is the expectation. That is what we think Paul Skenes will deliver this year. And if Donnie, he gets even close to some of those numbers, he's winning National League Cy Young Award.
Yes, and you have to remember last year, like we're a numbers society. And even though we like to see the averages, like, hey, he ran for 6 yards per carry. But then we said, well, what did he end up in the season? 900 yards on the ground, where another guy had 1,900 yards on the ground, but ran for 3.2 yards per carry. The reason I bring that up is sometimes you look at Skenes last year, we didn't have a full season from him. We're going to have a full season. So those numbers that you take a look at, the strikeouts rack up because, as you said, 11, 12 strikeouts a game is awesome. Let me see you do that from April all the way through to September. And look at how many he compiled as opposed to coming up, let's just say, midway through the season. So I do think he's not obviously flash in the pan is not the right word, but certainly a comet last year per se, hitting the Major League Baseball scene. But now you're going to get to see him for a full season. If he can be that dominant, those numbers are going to be astronomical and so much fun to watch. So for me, the 275 plus strikeouts is a crazy statistic, but an 8-1 price, you're like, if there's one guy that can do it, hey, man, it's probably Paul Skenes.
If he does sustain that, and he is healthy, and maybe even the Pirates are flirting with a playoff spot, you would think that is going to be attainable for Paul Skenes. Roki Sasaki, the other Dodger, by the way, the favorite to win National League Rookie of the Year.